It's 2 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down on the nightstand because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. Your mind is racing through tomorrow's meetings, an argument from 3 years ago, and whether you remembered to lock the front door, you feel broken, like something is wrong with you. But the real answer is far stranger than that. For most of human history, lying awake in the dark wasn't a malfunction. It was the plan. Anthropologist Carol Worthman spent years studying sleep patterns in hunter-gatherer societies, including the Efe people of the Democratic Republic of Congo. What she found upended a basic assumption almost everyone carries. We assume sleep should be one long, unbroken block, 8 hours, lights out, lights on. But that's not what she observed. Instead, people drifted in and out of sleep throughout the night. They woke, they talked quietly, they tended a fire, then they drifted off again. This wasn't insomnia, this was normal. Historian A. Roger Ekirch dug even deeper into this idea, but from a completely different angle. He pored through old diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe, and he found something remarkable. People described two distinct sleeps: a first sleep that began shortly after dusk, then a period of wakefulness in the middle of the night, then a second sleep that carried through to morning. Think about that for a second. An entire civilization, for centuries, treated the middle of the night as usable time, not wasted time, not broken time, just another part of the day. So what did they do during that gap? Some prayed, some had quiet conversations with a spouse, some got up and did small chores, mended a tool, checked on animals, added wood to the fire. Ekirch found references to this midnight period being used for digestion, for intimacy, for reflection. There was even a folk belief that dreams during the first sleep were more meaningful because the mind was closer to a waking state when it produced them. Now here's where it gets stranger. This two-phase sleep pattern wasn't just a European quirk. It shows up in language and folklore across cultures, hinting that it might be something close to a default human setting, not a cultural invention. So why did it disappear? The answer comes down to one invention: artificial light. Before gas lamps and electric bulbs, night was night, truly dark. And for a body without a screen, without a streetlight, without a glowing alarm clock, the night stretched long. Ekirch estimated that before industrialization, people in temperate climates might spend 12 hours or more in the dark period of a winter night. Nobody is built to sleep for 12 straight hours, so the body did something logical. It split the time into two sleeps with a buffer in between. But once cheap, reliable artificial light arrived, things changed fast. Suddenly, people could stay awake later. The natural dark period shrank, and the two-sleep pattern, this ancient rhythm baked into human biology, started to vanish within a couple of generations. By the time researchers like Ekirch went looking for it, most people had never even heard of it. This raises an uncomfortable question. What if the modern struggle with 2 a.m. wakefulness isn't a disorder at all? What if it's an old rhythm trying to reassert itself in a body that's been told there's no room for it anymore? There's a deeper layer here too, and it involves something called sleep architecture. Sleep isn't a single state, it's a cycle. Your brain moves through stages: light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep, the stage most associated with vivid dreaming, in roughly 90-minute loops throughout the night. Near the end of certain cycles, especially after a long stretch of sleep, your brain naturally moves closer to wakefulness. This is built in. It's not a glitch. Neuroscientist Matthew Walker, who has spent decades studying sleep at UC Berkeley, has pointed out that brief awakenings during the night are extremely common and usually go completely unnoticed unless your mind decides to use that moment to start thinking about your job. And that's really the core of the issue. The waking up isn't the problem. The panic about waking up is the problem. In a world with no artificial light, no clock on the wall, and no looming 7 a.m. alarm, waking at 2 a.m. carried no anxiety. There was nothing to be late for. The night had no deadline. You could lie there, listen to the fire, maybe talk with the person next to you, and let your mind wander until sleep pulled you back under. Now, that same 2 a.m. wake-up gets filtered through a brain that immediately calculates how many hours of sleep remain, multiplies that by how tired tomorrow will feel, and spirals from there. The biological event hasn't changed much. The meaning attached to it has changed completely. There's a phrase for this kind of nighttime spiral. Some sleep researchers call it conditioned arousal. Your brain learns to associate the bed and that quiet, wakeful window with stress itself. Over time, just the act of lying in the dark, awake, becomes a trigger for anxious thinking. It becomes a feedback loop. You wake, you worry about waking. The worry keeps you awake longer, and so the cycle reinforces itself night after night. Ancient humans didn't have this loop, not because their lives were less stressful, far from it, but because waking at night wasn't loaded with meaning. It was just night, a different texture of the same long stretch of darkness. There's something else worth noting. In many of the hunter-gatherer groups Worthman studied, sleep wasn't a solitary act, sealed off behind a bedroom door. People often slept near others, around a shared fire, within earshot of breathing, shifting, the occasional murmur. If you woke at night, you weren't alone in the dark. There was a kind of ambient presence, other humans nearby, that modern solitary sleep doesn't offer in the same way. Compare that to now, a quiet apartment, a closed door, total silence except for your own thoughts. For a nervous system that evolved expecting some background hum of other people nearby, that silence can feel less like peace and more like exposure. So what does all this mean for you, lying there at 2 a.m. tonight or some night soon? It means the wake-up itself probably isn't the enemy. Your brain is doing something it has done for hundreds of thousands of years. The difference is what happens next. Ancient humans used that window quietly, without urgency, without a deadline pressing on the other side of it. They didn't fight the waking, they moved through it. Some sleep researchers now actually suggest something similar for people who experience middle-of-the-night wakefulness. Instead of lying there, tense, watching the clock, get up, do something calm and dim. Read, sit somewhere quiet, let the mind settle without forcing it. Then, when sleepiness returns, go back to bed. It's an echo, intentional or not, of that old first sleep, second sleep rhythm. There's a strange comfort in that. The thing that feels like failure, lying awake while the world sleeps, might actually be one of the oldest, most normal experiences a human body can have. For most of the species' history, it wasn't the exception. It was simply part of the night. So tonight, when you wake at 2 a.m. and the ceiling comes back into focus and the familiar tightness starts to build in your chest, consider this. Somewhere, a long time ago, someone else woke up in the dark too. They didn't reach for a phone. They didn't calculate hours of sleep lost. They just lay there for a while, listening to the fire crackle, before drifting back under. Maybe the strangest part isn't that you woke up. Maybe the strangest part is that, for the first time in human history, waking up at night became something to be afraid of.